again here with Card Table Theater, and we are really happy today to present Jeremy Auman's The Last Word is Hope, a bipolar biography. I'm so happy that you could all come here today. Quick note before we start, if you didn't read your program, the play does contain references to panic attacks, suicidal ideation, and the reading of suicide notes. So if any of those things are triggering for you, feel free to exit at any time. That's totally fine. We also have a show coming up next week, The Clinic by Will Brumley. It's a staged reading, and it will be at the Cider Gallery at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, September 25th. So we hope we can see you there as well. So if there's nothing else, please enjoy the play and stick around afterwards and talk to Jeremy. Tell him how great it is, because it's a wonderful show. All right.
There's always hope at the beginning of a story. Stories have rules. Some say they have to have a beginning and a middle and an end. Some writers chafe at these rules and they try breaking them, telling their story backwards or in some other non-linear fashion. This story, my story, follows the rules most of the time. At least it starts at the beginning. And it's funny, we all share a beginning. We were all babies once, and we were all born. For me, that day was June 11, 1970, oh, the hell with it, 1971. Old, right? The redhead holding the baby in that picture is my grandma, my mom's mom, my grandma Shirley. She was an incredible person. I am the baby. I was born in a small town. My mom turned 17, and I came 2 days later in southeast Kansas, Baxter Springs, a small town, getting smaller. When I was 6, I moved to Riverton, an even smaller town, suffocating small, a stoplight, a car wash, and an old store called the Old Riverton Store. And a school. I went there from first grade through graduation. Growing up, I spent a lot of time with my grandma Shirley and her mom, my great-grandma Simone. They lived next to each other, divided by an empty lot. Grandma Shirley used to call me motor mouth because once I started speaking, I spoke in complete sentences. And some people say I haven't shut up since. Not long after that, my grandma Simone helped me learn to read as I sat on her lap and picked the words I knew out of the newspaper. I think I was about 4 when I asked my grandma Shirley what my penis was. And she said, "That thing, that's your doodle bug." And being a bright child, I tried to write with it. That's how I learned to spell my name. One time, I think I was around 5, I had this badge, this brass detective badge, and I wanted to play a joke on my grandma Shirley. So across the empty lot at my grandma Simone's house, I pleaded with her and my great Aunt Rose to, Aunt Rose, Aunt Rose, who had the uncanny ability to read your lips and mouth the words that you were saying, even as you were still forming them. Aunt Rose, who taught all of us grandchildren, that is her nieces, 5 of them, and the only one with a doodle bug, me, to play cards, games, checkers, Monopoly, sorry, poker, Yahtzee, pitch, hearts, Uno, blackjack, chess, risk, payday, and her favorite, Liverpool rummy. If we were out sick from school, we would stay at Grandma Simone's house. Aunt Rose lived with her after Uncle Bill died in 1977, which left Aunt Rose never quite the same. But if we were out sick from school and we were there, we would play cards and games with Rose all day, and we loved it. And Grandma Simone would watch soap operas and bark at the tiny black and white television all day long, all the while sipping a can of Stag beer, which she kept wrapped in 2 paper towels secured by 2 rubber bands. This was to keep her beer cold and her hands from freezing. And I believe it was the first koozie ever invented. But anyway, I had this badge, and I had an active imagination. So I wanted to play a trick on my grandma, Shirley. I loved TV cop shows. And so I went over to Grandma Simone's across the lot because I needed a disguise, see? So I pleaded with Aunt Rose and Grandma Simone to look like the cops on the TV show. I needed a mustache, a fake mustache. And I finally convinced Rose to draw one on my face, and she used a black Crayola crayon. I was skeptical, but eventually they convinced me that I would fool them if I were to knock on their door. So I added a pair of sunglasses and a fedora. I pocketed my badge. I started the trek across the empty lot to my Grandma Shirley's trailer. I was certain I had captured the look of a true plainclothes detective. I knocked on her door. It never occurred to me that A, I was her only grandson, and B, a fake crayon mustache does not transform a 3.5-foot tall preschooler into the embodiment of a 40-ish hard-boiled streetwise detective. I knocked again. She opened the door. I pulled out my badge. LAPD, ma'am, I'd like to ask you a few questions. And she exploded in laughter. And I was pissed. I couldn't believe she recognized me. I still remember how it felt. I was disappointed, angry, eventually having a good laugh. And she told that story for the rest of her life. But I believe to this day that if I would have had a suit or a uniform, and most importantly, a real fake mustache, I would have pulled it off. She loved that story. I always try to remember her from that day, how she was back then. People say a lot of stupid shit. I hate it when someone, after telling a story about the distant past, says, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that to this very day. Of course you fucking do. You just told me about it. You have to be smarter than your own brain. You see, the problem with mental illness is that it's mental. They used to call it manic depression if they diagnosed it at all. And we've come a long way since the diagnoses of the 70s and the 80s, but still doctors don't fully understand these chemical imbalances. It's hard to say, imbalances. They know about them, they classify them, chronic depression, ADHD, bipolar disorder, on and on. When I was a kid, when somebody flipped out, lost his or her marbles, they called it a nervous breakdown. And that's what they told us after Uncle Bill died and Aunt Rose became withdrawn and whatever else. They hospitalized her in the state mental hospital. And when she got out, and she was different. She kept giving me drawings and telling me about the wonderful people she met in the ward. She didn't call it that. The hospital. Eventually, she kind of balanced out. She was always a bit off. She, for years and years, until Grandma Simone died, she never stepped foot in her own house, except furnished, the same as it was the day she lost Uncle Bill. The first time I noticed something with my Grandma Shirley was in November 1979. I saw her getting into her car, dressed as a witch, hat, nose, broom, the whole 9 yards. And I said, Grandma, where are you going? And she laughed, a laugh I'd never heard before. And she said, I gotta go. I'm late for a Halloween party. Later, after she was in the mental ward, 4th floor of Freeman Hospital, I remembered that the weekend before, she'd been acting odd, wired, talking nonstop. She kept giving my cousin and me things, hand-me-down toys, jewelry, relics. We were too young to understand a manic episode back then. We all were. Depression and mania, two sides of the same coin. Two sisters, my aunt and my grandma. Grandma Shirley and Aunt Rose were both diagnosed bipolar. You see, the problem with mental illness is that it's not mental, it's chemical. Aunt Rose, playing solitaire, head down, not talking. Grandma Shirley insisting that she was gonna win the lottery any day, dressed as a witch for Halloween after Halloween was over. Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that to this very day. And it's hard. It's hard hearing something you don't want to hear, you don't want to believe. Like losing a pet, a loved one. You can get the raise, the vacation, or the fucking job. Maybe you have kids and they get into trouble, an accident or a fight. Your favorite band breaks up. A beloved novel is adapted, reimagined, and rebooted, and it sucks, like The Hobbit. News from the doctor. All of us at some point hear something unexpected or frightening. And some of us find out early about conditions like diabetes or lupus. They can kill you, but as long as you take your meds, do whatever else, diet and exercise, you can manage it. In mental health, there are millions of kids diagnosed with some form of mental disorder. Psychotropic drugs filling their Pez dispensers, rewiring their underdeveloped brains until they spend most of their adult life explaining to their shrink or their therapist or even their spouse that they're too paralyzed to pick up the phone, that they can't call their cousin on his birthday, that the phone makes them anxious. If you're older and you get a diagnosis like chronic depression, bipolar disorder, you are informed that you will be taking medication for the rest of your life. And man, that is a hard pill to swallow. No pun intended. Or maybe a little bit intended. Accepting the diagnosis, well, that's a whole different story. Let's just say there are stages. At least it was for me. Early on in my treatment or recovery, nobody gets cured or goes back to normal. I was confused and depressed and suicidal. I swallowed a bottle of generic Xanax, and I drove out towards the country. And I sat, and I watched, and I filmed trains passing by on tracks going to nowhere. I slept in my car for hours. Eventually, I made my way back home, and I was still suicidal. So I called my mom, and she said to go where I went before, to seek help. Seeking help? So fucking hard. Accepting the diagnosis is so fucking hard. Waking up in a mental ward is so fucking... The first time I was on lockdown, it was scary. I'd like to tell you it was like the psych wards you see on TV or the movies, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or something. But it wasn't like that. It was life-changing. But what happens in therapy stays in therapy. So therefore, I'm gonna cut to the end. I was diagnosed with ADHD, chronic depression, and bipolar 2 disorder. Hell, I didn't even know there was a sequel. I spent some time stressing over being crazy and taking a cocktail of drugs. You see, if you don't have insurance, they give you a mix of older, cheaper, but not exactly what the doctor wanted to prescribe drugs. And in an effort to get stable, I was taking Tegretol and Trazodone and Lexapro and Seroquel. Excuse me, that is an anti-seizure drug, a failed antidepressant, and mood stabilizer, and an antipsychotic. And when I got out, my shrink on the outside switched everything, which put me in a different mental ward 2 weeks later, for the second time in my life, for the second time in a month. You see, the thing is, and a good one will tell you, doctors don't have a fucking clue what drugs are gonna work. It's just a guessing game. And all they're doing is trial and error and error and trial. If they find something that works, sooner or later it will fail. Or worse, they'll find something that works better than expected. And while you may not be on the manic depressive roller coaster, you will become comfortably numb. And then you get a new med for that. And you start to notice all these advertisements for mental health drugs. And they're the fucking worst, man. They can push you right over the edge, stick you with disabling side effects. Fucking drugs, man. You know what, wait. Hold up. I'm sorry. I promise I'm not gonna talk about drugs all night. I smoked a fuck ton of weed. I did other stuff too. Many sleepless nights, pondering the world, life, music, the arts, all that stuff, in pursuit of a higher education. Higher education. I studied theater, and I had some great roles in a couple small colleges. Then I transferred to KU, and I landed the role of Lee Harvey Oswald in Assassins. If you would have told me that my first role in a university theater production would have been in a Sondheim musical, I would have laughed and said you were fucking crazy. Nevertheless, it happened. So early on in the rehearsal process, we're all on the main stage, like the whole company, like 40 people, and we're singing the main theme song. And after the first time through, the music director said, "Oh, that was very good, but we were a little bit off key. Let's do it again." And so we did. Same thing, just a wee bit off. After the third time through, he said, "If you think you might be off, don't sing." We did the song. I did not sing. "Perfect, perfect," he said. "Raise your hand if you didn't sing." And I raised my hand, and no one else did. That's what the cast did too, by the way. Oswald doesn't sing much. I don't sing much. That worked out. I was cast in main stage productions and major roles my first 2 semesters. I took improvisation and directing. In my first directing scene, I hated it immensely. Everything about it. Casting, actors, staging, blocking. And after my scene went up in class, I couldn't fucking wait to do it again. I auditioned for English Alternative Theater. EAT was the brainchild of Dr. Paul Stephen Lim, a professor of playwriting in the English department. It was an outlet for Paul's students' scripts. It was very bold, very provocative, and very alternative. And that made it rebellious, and I rebel. The first audition, I couldn't make it for some reason, so I tracked down the director, an eccentric graduate student that looked like Robert Smith from The Cure. I asked him, could I get a new audition time, and he said, "How about now?" And I did a goddamn monologue right there in the middle of the day, middle of the hallway, people walking by on their way to class. Later, he told me he cast me because I had the balls to do it right then and right there. That play started a long and fruitful relationship with EAT. Paul became a mentor and a lifelong friend. He hired me for my first professional directing gig. My first directing gig. He almost fired me and canceled the show. But in the end, the original play, Upright, was selected for the Kennedy Center Regional Festival and published. It gave me instant cachet as a director. I was 26 years old. That sort of launched a golden period for us. We started Card Table Theater. I directed 2 plays to start our first season, and they were both hits. So we launched the Victor Continental Show, a bawdy sketch comedy show and modern day vaudeville that ran for 15 years. My childhood friend Jerry created an iconic alter ego as the foul-mouthed, martini-swilling, immortal Continental, the world's greatest MC. I'm sad that it ever ended. Fall 2000 started the unlikely run of a remarkable little play called Bunnies. It was a play that was a fictional biography of Hugh Hefner. The premise was that Hefner was a complete goof, that he just stumbled into the idea of Playboy magazine. And the script was shitty. I decided to direct it when I read the one clever joke in the play. Hefner says to his friend Liz, Liz, do you ever think about me naked? And she says, don't be gross, penises are repulsive. And he says, and she says, don't be disgusting. That's why sex is so good. The penis is hidden. And miraculously, it worked. When we were selected for the regional festival, the timing got sharper, the characters got richer. Standing ovations. The penis laugh at that show is still the loudest laugh I've ever heard. And lo and behold, we were going to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. It's sort of like the college theater version of the Final Four. When you're on a streak like that, it seems like you can't fail, that anything is possible. It's similar to a mania that way. You don't know it when you're in it. When you're living it, if that makes sense, it's a terrific high. There were lows to horrible depression after a horrible breakup, 2 months worth. I was fired from a professional acting tour when they realized I couldn't sing. Oh, there's far too many stories to tell. Oh, the police coming to my rehearsal of a World War II play I was rehearsing in the park. The residents in the neighborhood heard the cast shouting, "You shot him, you shot him!" Full SWAT unit, guns drawn, coming out of the woods and surrounding us as I gave notes. Incidentally, if you ever find yourself in this situation, tell them you're rehearsing a play. It worked for me twice. Ironically, I was arrested that night for outstanding parking tickets. It was the first time I was ever arrested at a rehearsal. And it wouldn't be the last time. Oh, man. I could talk about all kinds of crazy shit from those years. But it's ancient history. We had a lot of fun. And we were young, and we were fearless, and we were at the top of our game. I hope it wasn't the peak, you know? Success feels like it will never end. It's similar to a mania that way. And when you're young, you expect to live forever. And nothing can bring you down. If mania makes you feel infallible, invincible, then depression is equally as powerful. Sometimes it's so kind, so gentle, you don't even notice it sneaking up on you. And something innocent can trigger it, a old picture, a bit of a song, something someone says, a malapropism or a catchphrase like, how you doing, or hey. And in an instant, this emotional recall, this good memory, pulls you out of the moment, even as you try to maintain the present. A smell, bacon, beer, perfume, sweat, sex. At first you smile, maybe a little laugh, even a contemplative chuckle, or a goddamn guffaw. If you're alone, without anyone to tell, to share the memory, to introduce to, or to correct, then your thoughts start to ruminate. We haven't talked in 8 months. That night was 17 years ago. God, I miss her, her hair, her curves. How he used to always forget his smokes in the car. When was that? Damn it, I'm losing time. Should I relish these snippets of the past? No, I can't, because I have bipolar disorder, and I will linger too long on the snapshot, the song, the smell, the memory, until I become stuck there, isolated, instead of in the moment. And then, up here, the chemicals start to mix. They start to react, and the blaming starts. I'm a fuck up, I'm irresponsible, I'm a fake, I'm a fraud, I'm afraid. And suddenly, as if by some powerful force of dark magic, I'm in that hidden cave, on that tiny lake, in the middle, on that tiny island, in the middle of that dark lake, surrounded by the living dead, desperately trying to drink the water out of the basin, hiding Tom Riddle's cursed Horcrux. Only, unlike Dumbledore, I don't have Harry Potter to wield his wand in my protection, to cast spells in my direction, to pull me through. And the air is thick with despair. Alone, surrounded by soul-sucking dementors. It's unbelievable. Not that long ago, I felt great, balanced, valued, and validated. And now, I only feel misery. I don't believe in anything good. Only the fading light. And the truths I believe in this moment begin to reverberate. I can't do anything right. I'm stupid. My thoughts twist and convolute. My niece and nephew are growing up so fast, and I rarely see them. Racing. They're running down adulthood, and I'm getting older, and I'm breaking down. And I know it's not true, but it is, and I know, and I can't, and I wish, and I... Self-esteem, value, they left the fucking building along with reason, validation, and joy. Alone, in the darkness, I feel, I believe, I'm a fake, that I'm a phony, that I'm a fraud, that I'm worthless. April 13th, 2014. I don't know how I got here, but I'm looking at the 6 hydrocodone tabs I have and strongly considering taking them all. I am 43 years old, and I'm a big loser and a baby. As I'm typing this, it is less from depression, as most people will think. I have been much worse. I'm being practical here. I have always believed that chronic depression is a terminal disease. I do not feel an overwhelming sense of hopelessness, and I think it is a horribly unfair and cruel way to leave the world. I mean, there is a lot of mess after. Not the bloody kind, but everything else. I am tired of fighting everyone and everything. I have always been a loser, and this has always been my destiny. Once upon a time, I believed in myself, in the future, in whatever talents I have. I managed to squander all of that more than once. Those who do believe in me are just waiting for the other shoe to drop. I almost feel obligated to give them their just due. It is 7 p.m. on a Sunday in April. Eliot said, April is the cruelest month. I don't know what he meant by that, but watching the Kardashians might have been part of it. LOL. I hoped writing might relieve some of this angst, but it isn't. I'm going to get a drink. Because, hey, the pills probably isn't enough unless I throw some alcohol at it, too. I don't know, man. I am really sick of this life. I have no job, no real marketable skills, and the thought of trying to learn something new excites me, but frightens me. I doubt I am capable. I am at my wit's end, empty. My passion faded. I am lost. You know, let's not do this. Let's not do this note. Maybe we'll come back to it later. Let's just move on. That's better. There is no substitute for passion in theater. I said that to a teacher once. It's a long story, but in short, I was petrified that I had crossed a line, and he asked me why. And it just came to me in that moment as tears welled up in my eyes. There's no substitute for passion in theater. I believe it. It's not enough, but it can take you a long way. Let me be clear here. The passion that I'm talking about, it's not the starry-eyed dreams of Broadway or the silver screen. I mean, most of us got into it with those pie-eyed visions, but the passion that I'm talking about isn't about fame or money or awards. It's about the why. Why do I do this? I don't do it because I want to do it. I do it because I have to do it. Without it, I can't breathe. Even when I love it, even when I hate it, I love it. That's the passion I'm talking about. That's the passion I feel, I believe, and losing it means losing everything. Loss of interest is a sign or a symptom of depression. It's an intake question. In inpatient or even outpatient treatment, mental health workers ask you questions about depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, etc. Your responses charted and the severity of your issues assessed. Losing interest, losing my passion. That was the darkest place for me. For years, I believed that the energy, concentration, and creativity it took to become a successful actor and director prevented me from slipping into full-blown manic depressive episodes. Anxiety was dormant. And the theater made me too high to be depressed for very long. I had to show up. Show must go on. When I started missing rehearsals, losing interest in performing or projects, I felt doomed, hopeless. Let me put this another way. In my experience, there is only one high greater than performing live on stage. Fuck heroin. Fuck cocaine. Fuck crystal meth. Fuck tequila, vodka, bourbon, and weed. Fuck morphine, methadone, and cheese. Forget opium, Adderall, fentanyl, and mollies. Not Seroquel, Vagisil, grapevine, or toads. Better than acid or mushrooms, pussy, ice cream sandwiches, sushi, or getting good grades. And more exciting than a blowjob or finding buried treasure. Really, I am not kidding. I am talking about the all-natural granddaddy of them all. I'm talking about dopamine, which increases exponentially in a mania. You see, a manic person can do 3 things while planning 4 more and doing 1 other. Of course, people can get hurt, including the manic. That's why hypomania is the best. You see, in a hypomanic state, you rarely go too far. In the full-blown manic episode, the subject might give away all their possessions, find God, drive naked through town, become a prostitute or an alcoholic, or believe they're about to win the lottery any day. The hypomanic state is less intense, but it can last for days, weeks, months, maybe years. And the thoughts, the problems, the ideas, the answers, the questions, the words come into my mind as fast and numerous as the droplets of water from my shower head. And for a time, sometimes for a long time, I can manage it. I can. Until I can't. The first rule of drug dealing, according to the film Scarface, is don't get high on your own supply. Do not do your own shit. Exactly what happens in a mania, which is why I stick to the meth. Drug humor, it never goes out of style. People with a sense of humor are able to tease about the stupid shit we do. The shit we do to each other, to our bodies, to our minds. Think about all those epic fail YouTube videos and the world's dumbest bad TV clip shows. They celebrate our physical fuck-ups. Dads getting kicked in the balls. Jackasses crashing skateboards and bicycles into cars, walls, and pools. Hell, the internet and cable TV have made a whole culture out of this ridiculousness. And the funny thing is, we laugh at it. It's asinine, but it's funny. If it makes you laugh, it's funny. Even if someone breaks an ankle or loses an eye. Strike that, it's all fun and games until someone loses an eye. My point is, our physical fuck-ups are often fuel for laughter. Not so much with mental illness. 1 in 5 Americans can expect to experience mental illness in any given year. No one wants to talk about it, let alone joke about it, unless you are a member of the club. Chris Gethard talks about Adderall and suicide, and it's funny. The late, great princess, Carrie Fisher, built more than 1 show around her battles with addiction and bipolar disorder. Pete Davidson talks about mental illness every week on Saturday Night Live. And Russell Brand, that fucking guy. Mental health is a shit ton harder to laugh at than our physical maladies. Maybe it has to do with shame, with stigma. I never used to care. I gave 2 fucks what people thought about me. As I grew older, I became aware of the way people perceived me. I like surprising them, shocking them out of their preconceived judging. I think that that's what these funny people try to do. It's an invaluable tool for removing the stigma. It is laborious. The physical screw-ups are easy, low-hanging fruit. Look, the reason that we never hear funny depression stories is because they aren't funny. Manic tales are equally as heartbreaking, although sometimes they can be funny. It is a fact that a good laugh or even a fake smile almost always makes you feel better. When I started posting about my battles with mental illness on social media, I was messaged by at least half a dozen people privately thanking me for being honest and transparent and letting me know that they were still in the closet about their mental illness, that they were afraid of losing their jobs. I'm familiar with this indignity, this silent secret keeping. For me, it's a family tradition. My mom related to me how when she was growing up, my grandma Shirley was a divorced single mother of 4 with an alcoholic deadbeat ex-husband living in rural Kansas in the 1960s. She said that they moved repeatedly, seemingly without rhyme nor reason. I can't help but wonder if Grandma Shirley's bipolar wasn't active back then. All the signs were there. And looking back at my story, peering through the prism of modern mental health care, I see myself imbalanced, ignoring the symptoms, copious amounts of self-medication, missing 2 months worth of classes and then rallying in the last 2 weeks to make C's, except for the one class I failed because I was too anxious to drop it. Not getting out of bed, not going to bed, not going to work. Oh yeah, the signs were there. I had fear of the diagnosis, fear of the stigma. I rejected psychiatry and therapy. Medication, there was lithium. That's what Grandma Shirley and Aunt Rose took for decades. And they were bone thin and shaky. However, their minds were still razor sharp. Aunt Rose could recall the actors, characters, plot, and storyline of every movie or TV show she ever saw. And she watched thousands. Grandma Shirley, she had manic episodes from time to time, but she could still kick all of our asses at Trivial Pursuit. And she loved movies too. I remember I took a friend to their house one time, and he was completely knocked out by the fact that my grandma and my great aunt were spending a Saturday afternoon in their tiny living room, chain smoking and binge watching in order the entire canon of Friday the 13th movies. We had long discussions about movies, actors, directors, storytelling. I remember those conversations. They're good memories. Memory is messy. Time transforms perspective. I saw a quote once, a meme that said, the biggest mistake I ever made was growing up. If only it were that simple. I mean, if you're going to gaze into the past, you have to remember it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Otherwise, you're being unfair to yourself. Captain James T. Kirk said, "It's my pain without our pain. Who are we?" We are incomplete. Pain, pleasure, foolishness, hope, loss, regret merge. They add up, and we are the sum. I never used to believe in regret. I trusted that whatever decision I made at whatever point of my timeline, I made for a reason. Sometimes a good reason, sometimes a bad reason, but always a self-assured reason. Now, I believe in regret. Regret shapes me. It triggers me, modifies my behavior. And maybe it always has. The signs were always there. In elementary school, I had emotional episodes. If I became upset or angry, I would become overwhelmed and cry uncontrollably. Today, they'd give me a med for that. Shit fits. That's what the other kids called it. And they bullied me and stoked my self-doubt. I grew up. Chip on my shoulder, a terrible temper, confident, cocky, arrogant. I don't know if I was overcompensating or it was just adolescence. It doesn't matter. The things that we thought were interesting or important back then modify. Meaningful becomes meaningless and vice versa. And if you look back at the whole canvas, it's downright silly. I mean, bad hair, gaudy accessories, too much makeup, eyeliner. What the fuck were we thinking? Yeah, like those idiots in the videos, I did my share of stupid shit. Some of it was funny. Like the time I broke my dick. You know what? My family's here. I'm not going to tell that story. That's a whole different play. There was an insane road trip that involved corrupt cops, mailbox baseball, UFOs, pissing in the radiator, an airport, medieval weapons, enough booze to kill 10 Dean Martins, and a pregnant lady. And by the end of it, I found myself drunk in a ditch on the side of a highway. Yeah, that was stupid. It was also a fucking blast. I remember a melancholy spring afternoon, sitting on the patio of our favorite coffee shop, drinking cup after cup of hazelnut supreme, sharing poems, ideas, and dreams, smoking, moping, doing crosswords, and watching the girls stroll by. Jesus Christ. How fucking pretentious were we? We might as well have been wearing a beret and an ascot and smoking a cheap corncob pipe stuffed with cheap cherry tobacco. Something I would never do. I mean, not that often. Okay, only the beret. I never smoked a pipe or wore an ascot. Well, at least not in public. Was I crazy? Probably. The signs were there. But I wasn't alone. I remember getting into an argument with a friend, a theatrical collaborator who shall remain anonymous, but his name is in the program. And I said, God damn it, Will. God damn it, man. You have to learn to think outside the box. And he replied, Auman, your box is a fucking circle. Yeah. That sounds about right. Circle box. My mind vacillates between the poles. I'm rarely in pain or despair over the future. It's the past and the present that trigger me. Positive and negative experiences and memories, a shotgun blast of emotion, inside out, upside down, wrong is right, right is wrong, confusion, the poles reversed. Stuck in emotion mind, mired in logic mind. Between the poles, wise mind, that is where the balance lies. Between emotion mind, between logic mind. That is hard to maintain. Balance between wise mind. Between emotion mind, between logic mind. Not letting emotion in, not shutting emotion out. That is the dialectic, the balance we seek. And it's hard to get there, and it's even harder to maintain. Sometimes we don't even realize that we're out of balance. Therapy and meds can get us back there. There's certain coping skills. Doing it on our own, in the moment, that is recovery. The balance we seek. It's hard to get off the teeter-totter and walk the beam. And I don't know if I'll ever get there. But I'm still fighting, and I haven't given up hope. It takes time. I know a few things about time. Time is not a constant. Sometimes it flies. Sometimes it's as slow as molasses. Sometimes it's malleable. There's hope in the relativity of time. You can stay young by slowing it down. Do it. Live every experience. Take risks, make mistakes, try and fail, and keep dreaming. Because when you stop dreaming, it's time to die. Making the most of time with mental illness is tougher. There will be some flying time and there will be some downtime. I guarantee it. But your time belongs to you. Remember that. Before you do anything stupid, before you lose your way. I've lost friends to suicide. Sometimes I think of them in that moment, not the final moment, before then, the moment when fear and pain and desperation cascade down upon them. I've stood at that ledge, felt that hopelessness. It is dark and desolate there. Am I brave enough or cowardly enough to remember that I haven't always been there, that I can return to a different place? April 13th, 2014. I've been alone for just more than 2 hours. The only light, the TV, and my laptop screen. This room is as bleak as my life. 2 hours ago, I started typing this. Started considering the 6 hydrocodone tabs I have. Sipping a Crown and Coke. Ironically, I don't even like bourbon. 9 p.m. And I'm still staring at those pills, and they are staring back at me. I keep considering the pros and cons of this sad situation. It has been 2 hours. I can't finish anything. Even the stuff I have finished, I faked or cheated somehow. I am a fraud. I have many friends, I think. However, I can only lean on them so far. And family? I love my niece and nephew as if they were my own, but I love them from afar. I don't see them enough, and I'm a shithead when I do. Mom and Dad have always been awesome. In repayment, I treat them lousy. I can't connect anymore. I have nothing new to offer. I'm just a worn out, thin-stretched skin of what I once was, which was mostly smoke and mirrors. I feel shitty that David has been calling for weeks, and I just can't call him back. I just can't talk to anyone right now. It is stupid. If I just reached out to somebody, I can't. I don't want to share this shit with anyone. I am in my own misery. I am sorry, David and Jen and Will, Mom, Dad, Paul, Jack, Kitty, Jerry, Casey, Polly, Carrie, Hillary, Rich, Sam, and anyone else who would listen. Casey, the only reason you were not first on that list is because you've heard it already. You are the only thing that truly matters. And I can't even do that right. I know you were hoping for some selfless behavior, some act that would show you I'm still the guy you loved once. I don't know how I got here. There are plenty of things to live for. None of them will make us happy for very long. Mark Twain said, I was dead 1,000,000 years before I was here, and I'll be dead 1,000,000 more after I'm gone, and I don't remember the first 1,000,000, so why worry about the second 1,000,000? Or something like that. I can't make up my mind. I'm hung up on being found here and Casey having to deal with it. That is the biggest thing. I'm not worried about afterlife or anything like that. I would drive away and go somewhere else, but the idea of just going to sleep on the couch with Petey, like always, sounds nice. I don't know whether to print out this note. Ugh, that's an ugly word, note. These are nothing but my thoughts at this moment. I could never say all that I need to say, nor explain why in a note. Instead, I type the words that come to my mind at this crossroad of horrible thoughts and lack of hope. I am very sorry to all of you, to everyone. Truly, truly sorry. I am terribly unhappy with myself. I have a terminal illness. Casey, I will always love you. Always. Who the fuck types a suicide note? This was not my first, nor was it my last. It is the only one I ever typed. Shortly after I wrote this, I got help at Bird Nash. I am one of 70 million Americans, with some form of mental illness. It's a shame that our conditions cause so much shame. Where do we go now? I guess, like all biographies, there should be some sort of coda that brings us up to the present, updating the subject's life. My grandma Shirley and my Aunt Rose lived together for years. They faithfully took their lithium, didn't eat enough, smoked too much. Grandma Shirley was functional and worked until retiring. Rose, not so much. They took care of each other. They both grew old, and they died peacefully. I used to watch Biography and Behind the Music, and these shows would cover the early exploits, the highs and lows of lives lived. And at the end, they would have this dramatic, rapid-fire highlight reel that would bring us up to the present and tie everything up neatly. So, here we are. I could disclose, point by point, roll by roll, play by play, a litany of theatrical and mental health collisions from the last several years. All my smashes, crashes, and hits. But you already know that more than once, I believed my life was over. There is no proven tragic connection between bipolar and creative people, but the signs are there. I guess my point is, bipolar is not a definition, it is a disorder. And to that point, perhaps my story can provide understanding. And at the very least, I hope it inspires empathy. For years and years, I could bounce back from my depressions, but my mania scared the shit out of my partners. I wasn't always reliable. I said things, did things I regret. I could not take them back. I always prided myself in being a collaborator, but somehow I became a lone wolf. I was desperately trying to hide my feelings of self-doubt, my fear of being found out. I tried to reinvent myself, create new opportunities, but the depression and the anxiety were crippling, and the side effects from the medication disabling. I couldn't hide it anymore. I had to radically accept it. My new diagnosis: chronic depression, ADHD, bipolar 1 disorder. Hey, I finally got the original. I was hospitalized 7 times with 4 suicide attempts in 18 months. IOP and DBT at Bert Nash helped me, along with a brief stay at my parents' house in good old small town Riverton, helped me find balance. In moments of clarity, balanced moments, I can see that my life flows the same as it does for anyone else. Everyone has ups and downs. They aren't supposed to feel like the end of the world, or the top of the world, for that matter. If I try, I can see that the paths that we have to travel haven't really changed that much, just the way I have to follow them. Can I find joy and balance in this new reality? The thing is, I don't really believe in an afterlife or a religion or Republicans. What we get is what we got. And we only get so many chances. And as time passes, our chances to live lessen. I will do everything I can to extend those chances. I have lived, but not enough. I'm a stereotype, a tortured, struggling artist. I live too much in the past, and not enough in the future, all the while trying to maintain the present. I am a storyteller, and I hope to write my words on the face of today. Hope to remind myself and anyone kind enough to watch and to listen that we are not alone, and that all we really have to do is do our goddamnedest to get as much as we can out of the time that we have. I am not broken. I am damaged. I am mentally ill. And the show must go on. As long as I never give up, I can live. Because there's always hope.